I'm announcing more than 500 new sanctions in response. In response to Putin's brutal war of conquest, in response to Alexey Navalny's death, because make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Alexei's death.
The U.S. has unveiled its largest number of new sanctions against Russia since the start of the war in Ukraine. President Biden is following through with his promise to punish Vladimir Putin following the death of opposition leader Alexey Navalny, who died in Russian custody. The sanctions targeting more than 500 individuals and entities, including some of Russia's top companies. It also targets Russia's financial, military, and import capabilities, along with 3 officials who were connected to Navalny's death. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is there for us at the White House. So, Ed, what do these sanctions do in terms of actually targeting both those officials who are believed to be implicated in Navalny's death, but also more broadly the war effort in Ukraine?
Yeah, Alana, good to be with you. More than 600 sanctions against individuals and entities inside and outside Russia and in 11 other countries, including Vietnam, China, the United Arab Emirates, and Liechtenstein, of all places. It does target now the prosecutors and others who tried and then jailed Alexei Navalny. Those sanctions were added late in the game as these packages were being put together to mark the 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. It includes now more than 4,000 entities that have been targeted in one way or another through sanctions since that war began. The targets today, announced today, include top Russian companies that are providing material for the ongoing Russian war effort. For example, a company that makes the kind of steel needed for Russia's helicopters, another railroad logistics company, a major payment processing system of the Central Bank of Russia. Gives you a sense of how the United States is trying to target really the logistical and physical assets of the ongoing war in hopes of squeezing the military or its ability to continue prosecuting its campaign in Ukraine.
Yeah, and Liechtenstein, that certainly is far-reaching in terms of these sanctions. But as you say, more than 4,000 sanctions on Russia since the start of the war in Ukraine. Are they working?
Biden administration officials would argue they are. The Treasury Secretary, in a statement earlier today, Janet Yellen, suggesting that the economy and its military-industrial base are showing clear signs of weakness because of all the different changes they've had to make or their inability to get the supplies, the equipment they need to continue functioning. There are others who will argue, however, that U.S. sanctions will only go so far and are mostly symbolic. It's if you see companion European sanctions or other steps taken to punish the Russian economy by other countries, then that would really start to squeeze them. For example, the biggest one that has been written a lot about this week and there's been focused on is the fact that while there's been all this restriction put on Russian oil exports, India remains its biggest customer because it's got this officially neutral position on the conflict and is obviously a country that needs as much of that kind of energy supply as possible. So it's not like they've been completely cut off in any of their sectors. But here now, again, attempts by the Biden administration to try to squeeze the Russian economy and the Russian military. We tried asking the president at that event you saw there earlier today, what is different? What is meatier? What is more profound or effective about this latest round of sanctions? He smiled and ignored the question, and we'll see if any other administration official can clarify what exactly about these ones makes them that much tougher and potentially effective.
Well, if I know anything about you, Ed O'Keefe, you will certainly follow up. I want to also ask, though, about negotiations that have been playing out behind the scenes on the release of other prisoners accused of espionage by Russia, particularly American citizens like Paul Whelan, Evan Gershkovich. Do these sanctions have any implication in those negotiations?
Unless Russia wants to prolong or put off those negotiations in response, there appears to be no direct link to anyone who would be involved in those talks. But obviously that is a concern that gets weighed anytime the United States does that. Regardless, the belief, at least the Treasury Department here at the White House, is that this is necessary, and these are the kinds of steps that can be taken to at least send a signal to the military and to others involved in the Russian economy how seriously the U.S. remains opposed to what they're doing in Ukraine. Remember, it's a State Department office and various State Department officials that take the lead on negotiating for the return of unjustly detained Americans. And those talks can take months, if not years, on separate tracks from what's going on here.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, thank you.